Good day, everybody. It's March the 27th, and the year is 2022. And I just want to share my thoughts with regards to three main issues or three different things that's happening on the world stage, especially in the last two 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 different events that happened in the last 48 hours. We'll take one at a time. Subject number one, the Russian Ukrainian war. And now it's going into the second month, uh, just completed 1 month, already into the second month. Why did Russia decide to invade Ukraine? Why did the Russian president Putin make decide or what triggered him or what precipitated him to uh, make that move and make that move much against the world opinion. Why did he do it? And what is the media not telling us? The mainstream media, be it the U.S. or the Britain. After all, U.S. and Britain, they are bosom buddies. They have been there. They are always together, and U.S. being the leader of the NATO alliance, and without U.S. nothing happens. So why did Putin decide to? Why did he make this move? Will the actual reason? We'll take a look at that. Number two, in the last 48 hours, the Saudi oil company known as Aramco has been bombed by the Iranian-backed rebels. This happens at a time when U.S. decides to buy the oil from Saudi Arabia. Why did U.S. Wanted to buy oil from Saudi Arabia? It just came in the aftermath of U.S. imposing sanctions on Russia, and a tit for tat move. Putin came out and, in opposition to U.S. Going against the Russian interest and trying to stall the Russian economy. President Putin announced that he will not sell Russian oil to any country unless they are willing to pay in Russian rubles. Of course, the international banks are controlled by U.S. That I guess, some of us would know, and uh, and the world banks are controlled by the U.S. bank known as Federal Reserve. Contrary to what everybody thinks, Federal Reserve is nothing to do with the US government. It's a private corporation. And that's a whole different topic. And how the rich and powerful behind the scene control the world governments, because money rules the world and the people who control the flow of money rule the world. Who are these people? They are the people who run the mega corporations and the cartels and uh, and all the financial establishment, the military industrial complex of the US, so on and so forth. And it's if you go into that subject, it will take days days to talk, even get close to talking about it. So there's so much to it. We don't want to delve into it at this point. We'll just briefly touch on different things. So, why did Russia decide to invade invade Ukraine, and what's happening in Saudi Arabian Aramco being bombed by the Iranian rebels, backed by the Iranian government, and thirdly, last but not least, it is North Korea that was lying low for a while, coming out and testing the most powerful, the nuclear warhead, the most powerful, the most powerful ever. Uh, they have tested nuclear weapons in the past repeatedly, but this is said to be the most powerful. It happened in the last 48 hours. So, am I just the only one? Or is it all connected to what's happening in Europe with Putin, Russian President Putin invading Ukraine? NATO forces trying to instigate from behind, giving all the weapons and money to Ukraine, and you fight. We'll just we are supporting you, but we'll not get involved. It's not our country. It's not our children. It's not our families. It's not our people going to die. It's your people, Ukrainian babies and children, women, right? But who is the instigator? The Western NATO forces, and U.S. is the big ringleader, and his bosom buddy is your Great Britain, and all these other. There are 30 states, and the other 28 states. They are not really partners as one might think. They are vassal states, so to speak. That's what they say. So the controlling power behind is U.S. And so US has been there in every trouble town area. They call it the regime change, not one country. Uh, that with US involvement, uh, not there had been, I guess, there had been 27 countries in the past since 1945, beginning with China to Libya in 2011. 27 countries US got involved. Regime change. They wanted to change their regime. They wanted to install puppet governments that would go with the US hegemony. Any of these countries, wherever US went, it's nothing but chaos, leaving everything in limbo for the people of that country to deal with, leaving a huge mess. But regime change. Let's talk about for a moment regime change in Iraq. US is calling see, the Western media is there's information, it's two-pronged war, information war on it's it's one, and the ground boots on ground is the other. And the information war, the West is winning. The boots on ground, you think again, in spite of everything the media says, all right? Russia is in control of the Black Sea, which means the NATO forces cannot come in. So they have achieved their objective, right? And the it seems the key is not has not fallen, but this is from a Western media perspective. We'll have a different view, but the truth will come out eventually. We just have to wait and see. So, anyways, U.S. has in the past 27 countries regime change. Like there is a colloquial saying, If you have US for a friend, you don't need enemies. So I'm not talking about US. When I say US, I'm not talking about the innocent US people. People are innocent. People are ill informed. They are brainwashed. They they are so full of passions and emotions. When emotions fly high, uh, you don't think rationally in any life situation, be it anger, be it anything, be it love, anger, hatred, anything. You know, you there's a thin line between sanity and insanity. And when you cross the line, when emotion pushes you to cross the line, in a moment you would commit murder. And you would, when you're sitting there waiting to be waiting for your, when you're sitting there when you're languishing in jail, you wonder, why did I do that? Now that's what happens when your passions and emotions, when you're ruled at the height of passions, when you do things. So people are, they play into, they pander to the people's emotions. Patriotism, it's another emotion, right? What is patriotism? My country. Everything is about my country. I want to give my life to my country. It's not about country you need to think about it. You need to think about this world, the globe. You should not do anything to harm this world. You should not do anything to to engage anything that would harm the only planet we live in, right? And it's not about my country or your country. World is for everybody. Live and let live. But do these hegemonies think US hegemony, before that it's the British hegemony? Did these civilizations ever think like live and let live? No. It's all about filling their financial coffers. The world is ruled by the financial establishment. People think the presidents and prime ministers and the elected leaders rule them. No, it's they are puppets. Who's pulling who the puppet masters are behind, right? And people don't realize 80% of the people are ill-informed, misinformed, and like in anything, you can apply the Pareto's principle. Pareto is, the name is spelled P-R-E-T-O. Pareto is an Italian scientist, economist, and I guess he was a civil engineer too. He formulated this 80-20 theory, whereby it it is clear, it can be this theory can be applied to any life situation. In an organization, 80% of the people do not strive or work hard to promote the company. They just come and go for their paycheck. 80%, right? 17% strive hard to uh, monitor this 80%, make them work, control them, rule them. But this 17% promote the company. They are the senior executives and the corporate heads and whatnot. But who is ruling the organization? 3% owners. The ownership is with the 3% of the individuals, right? Same thing in the macro aspect. The world, 80% of the world is ignorant. They are the voting population. They constitute the collective consciousness of humanity. They believe they have democracy. Yes, you have democracy for one day. You cast your ballot, it's your democracy for 4 years or 5 years, depending on which part of the world you live in. Again, after 4 or 5 years, there will be elections. You, on that day, you have democracy. Do these leaders you elect, they are supposed to be workers, your servants. Do they work? Do they have your welfare in their mind? No. They work for the financial establishment which is pulling the string from behind. It's the financial establishment they are benefiting from. They are not benefiting from you. So they are, your welfare is in the is I mean, it is Don't fool yourself. Don't be subjected to the illusion all the leaders that you elect work for you. That's an illusion. Yes, they work for you, but you're not their priority. The priority is their paymasters, the financial establishment. Who are these? What entities constitute or make up the financial establishment? We can talk about that all day long, but you don't want to. You say anything denigrating these hidden forces. They are known as the deep state. The term was coined, I believe, in 2013 or so. It's a new term that's in vogue. Deep state meaning it's not the government. There's a government hidden, shadow government behind the government, made up of the richest in the world. So that's what it is. In Russia, Putin is said to be we don't know the extent of the wealth, but estimated to be said to be the most powerful man in the world, the richest man with the biggest army. But the real richest are not individuals, they are dynasties. There's so many dynasties, US, largely US, and we are not going to talk about it. We'll leave that aside. So, Russia invaded the Ukraine for what? And in 1991, Soviet empire disintegrated. It was made up of 15 countries, including Soviet Union at the helm, including Russia at the helm of it, but that it disintegrated. It was dissolved. Why? The oil prices in the early 70s, uh, you know, Arab-Israel war, Middle East, and the Middle Eastern countries were able to control the world economy with oil prices. The entire world was dependent on Middle East oil, and of course, U.S. is a large oil-producing country in the world, but the oil they produce is different, and it needs, as I understand, it's a very costly proposition for them to, in their refineries. The fracking costs money, and not only that, it's cheaper to buy oil from Middle East. So is Canada, but the difference between the Russian oil and the Persian or the Iranian oil is both in Iran and Russia, two largest countries that produces natural gas and oil. By contrast, natural gas and oil is not harmful for the environment, and it doesn't emit carbon dioxide, as, and it is ethane methane based uh, commodity or oil or whatever you call it, right? And I don't mean to sound like a geologist. I'm not one, but I'm just going by what I have learned, what I have studied, what I've not studied, what I've gathered, what I've acquired by way of researching information. So that's how it is. Uh, and early 70s, the war in Middle East, uh, and the Middle Eastern countries control the world economy with their oil, manipulating the oil prices. Russia in the early 80s suffered tremendously, and their Russian economy was in doldrums. Ronald Reagan was in there was the president then, and Gorbachev was the general secretary of your Soviet Union, which means the leader of Soviet Union, Soviet Empire, and uh, and it so happened, to make a long story short, Ronald Reagan convinced Gorbachev to dissolve Soviet Union. That's what the Americans wanted. Americans were obsessed with Russians. Russians generally relatively, uh, you know, maintain a low profile because the economy is always uh, they are being they are being obstacles are put on their way to trade in the open market, in the world market, in the selling the oil, be it the oil or anything, because the U.S. government controls the banking system. Of course, the government is as you know, it's a puppet, and the people behind the government, the so-called deep state, controls everything, and the financial establishment controls everything. So Gorbachev at the time raised this concern. What was the concern? What we are facing today. Why Putin invaded? It was what Gorbachev predicted. What if US? What is the guarantee US will not expand the NATO alliance all the way to Russia? And will that is there any guarantee that US not will not do? And this took place in Malta, the summit. Ronald Reagan did not attend that summit. His vice president uh, George Bush Senior, George H.W. Bush attended. He gave the assurance that it will not happen, and Gorbachev, in a moment, I'll show you. It's all in YouTube. We are living in the digital era. People have short memories. If you go research, you see US is calling Russian president. They're trying to demonize they always demonize Putin, and now they are lionizing the Russian, the Ukrainian leader Zelensky, and Putin is a Satan, and they're calling Putin a war criminal. If you call, it's like the kettle calling the pot black. If Putin is a war criminal, you're probably 25 times more a war criminal for what you have done since 1945, especially in the last 2 decades. What happened in Iraq? The official estimate says around 7,000 odd innocent people died. It's war after all, but in the truth is, the reality is, they they carpet bombed for 40 days, and over 1 million people, children, babies, women, elderly, everybody died. But everything was suppressed. Media never spoke about it, and people people just turn to media for to to hear the truth. Media, if anything, media has hardly anything to do with the truth, right? Largely, the Western media is probably 95% propaganda. I'm not saying the other side is doesn't do it, but you will see if you listen to the Al Jazeera, the Middle Eastern uh, broadcast, or the Indian English broadcast, or the RT, you see there is propaganda, but it's relatively, compared to the Western media, it's relatively less. And yeah, percentage wise. And so that's that. Listen to what Gorbachev said, you will understand.
And I am not persuaded by the assurances that we hear that Russia has nothing to worry about. That was abruptly suspended or terminated in 1990.
Нельзя унижать народ, нацию, и нельзя рассчитывать, что это так пройдет.
You may not humiliate a nation, a people, and think that it'll have no consequences.
Ну и другое, это что уже, новая стратегия?
So my question is this a new strategy?
Говорят, нет.
So there you go, people. You heard it from the horse's mouth. You don't humiliate a nation and expect good results to come out of it. And to begin with, US gave the assurance that it will not expand the NATO. But did they live by their assurance, their promise? Not at all. So Putin, after 1991, 6 Eastern Bloc countries have been accepted to the NATO alliance. So the NATO forces are getting closer and closer to Russia. Now, they wanted to accept Ukraine. And Ukraine is all passionate about joining NATO. They think they were with Russia and they never saw the light of the day. And it's another point of discussion. Uh, you know, the Soviet Union practiced the socialist dogma, and the West practiced the capitalist dogma. And any country that practiced the socialist dogma, socialist policies, never prospered. Never. There's not one country that prospered with the socialist dogma. Why? As I can give you the reasons. All we have to. I want to stay focused on the subject matter, but putting it very concisely, the socialist dogma focuses on distribution of wealth instead of multiplying the wealth. The capitalist dogma focuses on freedom and gives the money in the leaves the money in the hands of, gives the leeway and freedom for the people to carry on their business. So individuals, when they are vested with the responsibility of money, the human nature is such green human nature is propelled by two fibers: greed and selfishness. When individuals want to multiply their wealth, sky is the limit. They will do anything, right? When you appoint a state to manage your financial affairs, and in a socialist setup or socialist government that incorporates the element of democracy, which means they will hold elections. These leaders come every 4 years or 5 years to power. What do they think? First thing, they want to get rich because they want to, retire early or whatever. They want wealth not just for one generation, probably 25 generation. The greed, human greed is unlimited. So corruption is rife. And corruption is rife both sides. But in a capitalist nation, capitalist environment, where capitalism is practiced, there will be abuse of power. There will be corruption, and in the socialist environment, there will be abuse of power, but that will be at the hierarchy, the topmost hierarchy, and going down the the pecking order, so to speak, and so that's what it is. And so these people who are elected by the people, they do not know how to manage money. They know how to rob money. I'm using a very crude term. Yeah, it is robbing. Can, it doesn't, just because you don't go rob at a gunpoint, it doesn't mean robbing. If you touch something that doesn't belong to you, it's robbing. So politicians are very good at robbing and getting away, and they are so gifted, gifted thieves, right? And because they use the power to cover up everything, so that's what happens. So Russian concern, what Gorbachev expressed back then, has become true now. So Ukraine wanted to become a NATO and part of NATO, NATO member, and that if Ukraine becomes a NATO member, what happens? The Black Sea, which is the Russian doorstep, and Ukraine, Russian, they share the same border, and US forces, US will bring all their forces, the NATO forces will be at the doorstep, in the backyard of Russia, the doorstep of Russia. Do you need a greater humiliation than this? How much would you want to push someone, a nation? Okay, that's one thing. Okay, what's the other? So we spoke about, in a way, we even went into great lengths justifying the Russian invasion, although it's absolutely not acceptable. War is evil, no matter what. There is no winners in the war. Maybe the powerhouse will get away with the loot. But people are always losers from both sides. And as the saying goes, there is no winners in a war, only vanquished. But these culprits who we call the leaders, we elect them to be our leaders, get away with every questionable things. And once they are elected to power, you think you have democracy, but you have democracy every 5 years or 4 years, the day you cast your ballot. And do these people, they are supposed to make decisions on taking your welfare into consideration. Do they do that? No. They're only looking at how they can stash away their wealth, the wealth that's illicit wealth, robbed people. The wealth belong to the people. The resources belong to the people. The wealth that legitimately belongs to the people, to the nation, these leaders rob and stash it away in off jurisdiction bank. There are over 29 banks, I believe, around the world, where considered to be off jurisdiction. Even then, the laws are such, it's their privacy is protected. These thieves who rob the public wealth get away with it. So Russia, for its part, wanted, what does it want? It has discovered, what we need to understand is Russia is a huge landmass, and crossing time zones. And Russia, the northern hemisphere, the Siberian, the North Sea, it's nothing but ice in the cold season. And the ships that sail, you need the icebreakers. And Russia has the technology and nuclear powered icebreakers that would sail in the colder seasons. But way back in 1867, Alaska was sold by Russia to US for 7.2 million. But Russia thought it was too much. I don't know the it's separated by sea, if I'm not mistaken, subject to correction. I think it's like 20 odd miles, 22 miles or something like that. But it was too much to maintain Alaska. So they sold it for 7.2 million. Alaska is USS United States biggest state in America, and I think it's even bigger than California. And Alaska has it's a gold mine today, because Alaska is twice the size of Sweden. 2/3 of all the parklands is in Alaska. Alaska shoreline is longer than the entire Atlantic coast. Alaska spans 2 time zones. Alaska has 3,000 rivers. Alaska has 3 million lakes. Alaska has 1,000 glaciers. Alaska has more than 100 volcanoes. Alaska is the second largest state in US. I'm sorry, I said first. I think California is the first. Second largest state in US. Alaska is one of the richest states in US. Alaska is second largest crude oil producer in the US. 670,555 barrels of crude oil a day Alaska produces. Alaska is rich in copper, gold, timber, zinc, lead, fish, and fur. Alaska is so rich that it doesn't have sales or income tax, instead gives every resident an annual stipend. It's nice to live in Alaska, but who who would want to go live? It's the cold season lasts 8 months. It just 4 months is too much for us, but you double that and twice the misery. No matter what you may have all the wealth and comforts, but do you want to deal with that cold for 8 months a year? So that's Alaska. It's said to be the richest state, one of the I guess the second richest state in US. Russia gave it away. Don't you think they they would feel bad about it? Now, Russia discovered more wealth, hidden wealth in the North Sea, in the Siberian, the landmass. What they have is in future, when they have when they are able to do the drilling and drill into the high thatched the shore or the sea, they will be probably the richest nation. And after 2005, Russia has slowly developed the industrial technology, especially with Putin coming into power. And by 2014, Russia is said to have developed uh, the industrial technology to drill the oil. That's how the North Sea oil, they are able to supply to Europe and in rest of the world as well. They had this pipeline going. First it was Nord Stream 1, now they have Nord Stream 2, which the NATO forces, NATO countries came together and they wanted to halt it. And the project is complete, but it's not operational. And this summer 2022, it was going to be oil was going to be flowing through the Nord Stream 2. But US is always at the helm of everything. uh, there's always another side to uh, what the Western countries want to proclaim to the world. They are the saviors of humanity, and everybody else is satanic. Well, so be it. It's a one-sided story that you hear. So that's Russia discovered it, and along with Russia, Putin as I mean, we cannot get into his psyche, but we can only judge people by their actions. Uh, Along with Russia, Ukraine is said to have all the wealth, like shale gas. Shale gas is said to be it's even better than the gas uh, that Russia is uh, is transporting right now. Uh, and the shale gas is said to be the best for the environment. And in some parts of in the it the reservoir or the and it is in the rocks in the sea that's been there for, like, after like millions of years, it develops shale gas. And if you tap into the shale gas reservoirs or the and that in itself is what the world needs. And Ukraine has that, Russia has that vast reservoir, and Ukraine is also very rich in so many other resources. And Russia doesn't want Ukraine to go with the West. And that's the other side of Russia. On one side, they have a reason, because they have been everything the West is doing is to harm Russia. And on top of it, money is everything. Without money, nothing happens. And Russia is not going to let go of Ukraine. And any number of excuse to to conquer parts of Ukraine. Maybe it's true. Russians are living there and they are being harassed by as Russia says, arrows by the Ukrainians. So many things are coming to light. We don't know, but what we are hearing, what's coming from Western media, is nothing short of diabolical lies. So people need to be wary of it. And this has become so long. I wanted to see if I could say it in. Fortunately, I couldn't. Unfortunately, I couldn't. If I could say it in 15 minutes the most, it would be nice. At any rate, I will not say. There's so much to talk about, but this is the best I could do. And thank you for listening. Thanks for your patience.